Hi, my name is Stephanie Phillips. I'm the founder of World Childless Week, and we're here today for the final webinar that I'm hosting. There's still one more to come, but the final one that I'm hosting of the week, and it's moving forwards, and I'm joined by Natascha. Hello, Natascha.
Hello.
Hi, I'm really excited that you're here to do this one for us. Moving forward is such an important part of what we're going through. We don't want to be stuck in a rut. We do want to take those movements as slow as they are, as fast as they are. We want to move forwards. So I'm going to turn off my camera and audio and leave it over to you, and I'll catch you again later on.
Thank you. Well, hello everyone. My name is Dr. Natascha Hebell-Fernando, and I'm here to talk today about giving you my steps that I've seen that works with my clients, but even with myself in moving forward when dealing with childlessness, not by choice, and often after infertility. And so during this webinar, I just want to let you know it is possible to move forward and to find that joy and zest for life again. And I know it can be really difficult. And so maybe you're somebody who is maybe you're in your 20s and you had a surgery, and maybe you have a genetic disposition that you cannot have children. And you're faced with this future without children. It's not easy to realize that, not having the biological children, but also the comments, oh, you're still young, and those kind of things. Or maybe you are in your 30s and things have just not been happening, and maybe ART, assisted reproductive technology, is not something for you, and you're pondering, how will this look like, and you're really struggling with every month and just not getting pregnant. And maybe you're somebody, you're in your 40s, and maybe you have tried IVF, and you've just had some losses, and it's just not turning out the journey you thought it would be. And you're at a point where maybe you're with your partner or even by yourself, and you're looking at a future without children. Or maybe you're somebody who is just getting into menopause, and you realize that, wow, this is really it. It's like my body is just not up to carrying children anymore. And how will I look for the rest of my life? How do I answer these questions from people? How many kids do you have? Or maybe you're actually somebody who's maybe you're in your 60s or 70s or even 80s, and you still feel that dagger in your heart when you see a young family with children. And you also see maybe your friends having grandchildren, and those children are getting married and have their own families, and you're thinking about your future and getting older and not having the support of your children. So I want you to know that we're all here in this community to lift out our spirits, and I want you to know that the world is waiting for you. And so I will just talk to this a webinar today to just give you my simple tips, and hope to give you a message of newfound purpose and soul alignment. And so you know very well what I mean. If you're crying on the inside but you're smiling on the outside, maybe you feel so alone and misunderstood because nobody can really understand what you're going through. And it's really so important to know that you are not alone. There's actually so many of us, and we really don't talk about it too much. And I really want to thank Steph for putting this whole event together for the last few years, and it's growing year by year because more of us are becoming aware that so many of us are dealing with this. And so maybe you're not just going to the grief phase, but maybe your life looks great and you have a great career, everything looks great on the outside, but you know what I mean, if you're still affected by certain triggers and you feel it on the inside. And so I want you to know your time is now. You can reclaim your life, you can regain your confidence, and you're so worthy. There is so much light inside of you, and you can definitely change the world, because what you're going through, it makes you only stronger, and it makes you emotionally, you have such a depth that nobody else has. So I just want you to know that things will work out okay. So I want to give you a little bit more about my background and why I'm here today. So for me, it's 25 years that I'm married this year in 2020. And my husband and I, we were so excited to start a family. And just to give you a little bit of background, I'm actually an only child. And when I was growing up, I was really focused on my studies and on my career. So family wasn't really the very first thing that I was thinking about. But I met my husband and everything kind of changed. But then, like I said, we were so excited to start a family. Nothing happened. And then with the insurance, we had to wait 2 years, and then we went to see a specialist. And I will just never forget that moment when we went to see a reproductive endocrinologist, and there were just some challenges. In that moment, I have that as a reel in my head on exactly what I was wearing and what was said and how things were afterwards. And then, we tried some treatments, they weren't successful. And then we kind of kept on living our lives. And I always had that little bit of hope every single month, and every single month that hope would be crushed. And so what I did is, and I do not recommend that, is I didn't know who to talk to at the time. And it's easier now with the social media, with the Gateway Women, with finding contacts here during World Childless Week. And so I just really focused on my career, my study. I went back to school because during my infertility journey, I had discovered acupuncture, and I felt, even though I hated needles, I felt absolutely amazing after acupuncture. So about 10, 12 years after my first experience with acupuncture, I went back to school. I became an acupuncturist, and I did even additional studies in integrative holistic medicine. And so that was my journey. And then I realized, looking back at certain patterns that I had in my life and in my health, that it actually all came from not having really processed my grief in a healthy way. I was really kind of denying it and putting it in a safe box inside of me. So I really had to work through that. And then through my coaching career that I then started, I realized these steps that I'll be sharing with you today that have helped me and my clients to get a better bearing with everything that's happening and finding more of a purpose in life and just getting that confidence back. And so my method is actually based on overall on balancing your nervous system, because I believe that all of us have experienced a trauma, a real trauma in, first of all, getting this news of our reality, of not having a legacy, of not having something that is so natural to everybody around us, and also all the trauma that's associated when you have losses, when you go to treatments, and all of that. So for me, I feel like as a health practitioner, I really focus on balancing that nervous system that controls everything in your body. And so I focus on 3 things on how to kind of repair and rebalance that nervous system. And it is by addressing nutritional deficiencies, working with the hormones, and also with working with mindset. And so today, I will focus on my steps as far as the mindset is concerned. And Steph, are there any questions already? Or if not, I will just move forward.
No, everybody's listening intently, so please just carry on.
Okay, thank you. All right, so to get the most out of this little presentation here, I just recommend that you have a piece of paper and pen because I will be talking about affirmations. So positive affirmations are kind of like mantras. There's very simple sentences that you can use to repeat to yourself. You can repeat them out loud, you can just read them, you can just kind of doodle on them. But what it is, it kind of reprograms your subconscious to make this more of a reality for you. And so take note of the affirmations for the different phases that I'm talking about, because affirmations, and you can make them work to whatever feels more in sync with who you are and what you feel is right for you. And I will also talk about some exercises you can do, but don't think about that this is kind of like a huge to-do list. I have to do this exercise and that exercise. Just kind of see what resonates with you. Maybe there's really nothing that you feel like doing at this time, and that's okay. But if you feel like that there are certain things that you think like, yeah, I haven't looked into that, or this sounds really interesting, then make a note of it and give that a try. And yeah, so just be patient with yourself, be compassionate, give it time. This is all a process. It's all a multi-layered process. So when I talk about the different phases, it's not like step 1, step 2, check, check. Doesn't work that way. I wish it would, but it doesn't. So just so you know, to be kind to yourself. And you are really going to find your confidence again. You're going to like truly love all of yourself again. And you're going to love life again, and you're going to find your soul purpose. All right, so here is the first step. And the first one, I call it the understanding. And so the understanding is really that we are more than just who we are right now. We're really divine beings in human form. That is my belief, that we have a big purpose here in our lives. And I know that right now, it just can seem like you're looking at your life and it's like this black abyss with, you know, that reality of being childless, not by choice. But I want you to remember that you're here for a certain purpose that's so much bigger than you could have ever imagined. And so here's an affirmation for you that you want to repeat to yourself if you know you feel like the rug has been pulled from under you. And the affirmation is, I am safe. So anytime you have an affirmation, you want to use it in a present tense, I am. And so just that, I am safe. Like for me personally, I use that a lot. Like for example, before doing a webinar, a lot of people watching, I tell myself, I am safe. And I can take a deep breath and I know I'll be okay. And so looking at, you know, an exercise that you could do, finding that understanding of your life, you can look at the different aspects of your life. So there's kind of like 8 different areas that I recommend my clients look at, which is, you know, your physical health, your mental well-being, your spiritual health, your career, your relationships, your social life, your family life, and also your financial situation. So if you really wanted to do that exercise, you could look at all these 8. You could have like a scale from 1 to 5. 1 is like, this is really awful. 5 is great. And just kind of see where you are in all those different areas. And maybe just, you know, look at it. Is this, you know, how does my life feel right now in all these other areas? And then ask yourself, is this really true? And so think about what area of your life feels best right now. And again, ask yourself, is this really true? And which area feels the worst? And is that really true? So just something to ponder. And so that's kind of like the first step, to kind of get your bearings into the bigger reality of you kind of like being a spiritual being. And then let's go to the next step. And that is a really hard one. And the next step is acceptance. And to move forward, you have to accept where you are right now. And I think for me, that was very, very difficult. And I think it is for a lot of you as well. Because only once you know this is kind of it, and you can look at that fact one-on-one, you can actually you start taking action. And that's why you want to declare as your affirmation that I am creative with everything that I do. So I really want you to focus on maybe possibilities and the fact of creativity. Because if you think about creation, we think about procreation, but how about the creation of ideas, of concepts, of new ways of doing things? So here's the affirmation again, is I am creative with everything that I do. And so for like as an exercise, you definitely be kind to yourself and allow yourself to grieve. Sometimes we don't really do that, and we might not have a safe environment where to do that. And maybe it is helpful to find a support group or a therapist to really go to this grieving process. You know, writing about it really works. Punching a pillow works, or screaming really works. But then once you kind of get that out of your system a little bit, because you can only cry that much after a certain point, and then you'll probably get angry, and that's okay too. But then start taking some time and journal about what creativity really means to you. All right, so we have the first two kind of phases, the understanding and the acceptance. And I'm just going to check in with Stephanie real quick and see if there are any questions at this point.
Nope, just keep going. Everybody is
Okay,
listening intently. You're fine.
All right, I will keep going. All right, so after the understanding and acceptance, so where do we go next? And the next step is self-love. And I know that that might cause some eye rolls. It's like, yeah, self-love, but really, we have to love ourselves first. And sometimes what happens during this whole process is, and I've seen that with a lot of my clients, even with myself, that we get into the state of feeling guilty or ashamed. We feel ashamed because, you know what, like everybody around me can get pregnant. Something so natural. It's like, you know, it's like part of life. And how come I cannot get pregnant? You know, and there can be some shame that comes with that. And also, people don't really talk about it. And the people that haven't had problems getting pregnant, they just really have no idea what we're talking about. And now we can do a collective eye roll here. They'll all tell us, well, why don't you just adopt? Or why don't you just relax? So it really is like we have to love ourselves first and move beyond that state of, you know, feeling that shame. It's like, no, there's nothing we did wrong. I don't have to feel guilty about maybe not having tried hard enough, or maybe I shouldn't have had, I don't know, coffee, or maybe there were some relationships that maybe weren't the best choices when you were younger. No, it's part of your life's journey. So I want you to focus on loving yourself first. And so here's an affirmation for you. And it's, I am aware of my personal power. So again, I am aware of my personal power. And that power, imagine that it comes just from your solar plexus right here. Like, I'm here in this life, I'm powerful, and this is it. You know, I just, like, I have to love myself first because nobody else will do it for me. And so, again, it's called the affirmations. I am aware of my personal power. And so when you sit with that a little bit, I just want you to think about, like in terms of an exercise, make a list of 5 things that you used to enjoy. So I want you to think about what is it that you really just love doing when you were younger. And maybe you have experienced this, what I hear a lot, and it's really a sign of trauma. Like you look at yourself, you know, coming up to a certain point, that's who you were. You were confident, you trusted life, you knew things were okay, you were excited, you were looking forward to your future. And then here is the infertility thing. And then the next thing is like, I don't even know who I am anymore. And so I want you to know, if you're in this state, like, I don't know who I am anymore, like you're never going to go back how you were in the beginning. But this is the time to kind of retool and rethink things. And one of the things is to start really loving yourself with all the defects, I mean, all the things that who you are. And it's just so super important. So I want you to know that this stuff is like a true trauma thing. If you have that reel in your head when you know, you heard from your doctor this or that, or, you know, you got the results of a certain test, that is really a trauma that has to be processed. And again, you know, look for the right support, work with somebody if you're still having problems with that constant wheel in your head. And so I am aware of my personal power. Make a list of some things that you used to enjoy and do those. You know, do something today that you haven't done in a long time that really made you feel happy. That is just so important. And I hope that you find those things that you used to enjoy. Because, you know, very often, like what happened to me, is like I was just so busy working and pushing my grief away. I was like, I got to a point like, what do I actually really enjoy doing? It's almost like punishing myself. And so I want you just to think about that. And actually, I did see some questions coming in, so now I know when to get back to stuff. So if you could just let me know what the questions were, because I just see them run through really quickly.
Oops, back again. Not so much questions, but like some people are just thinking about what you're saying and how it relates to how they felt, and saying, yeah, it's very true points. You know, we almost feel like what we have is everything they're going through is natural for them, but we feel guilty for ourselves for not trying enough. And I think we often feel like shame, and we self-impose those negative thoughts and feelings onto ourselves, when we need to realise there's so many of us feeling like that, but it doesn't mean to say it's true.
Yes, exactly. I'm so glad. Thank you for sharing that. And that's exactly what I meant to say, is like that we are so hard on ourselves, you know. And actually the reason why I started talking about my own journey and my childlessness was experiences that I had in my acupuncture clinic, because I had several patients that came to me because they had IVF, and acupuncture really helps in preparing the uterus for a successful IVF transfer. So I had, in the same month, several women that came to me. They all had their very last chance with their IVF, and they were all crying and so ashamed and guilty, because they were saying, oh, what do I do if this doesn't work out? I can't give a grandchild to my parents. You know, we spent all this money, and oh, I shouldn't have done this, I shouldn't have done that. And my heart just broke, because I realized, wow, this is just not right. Because here's a woman who just went through all these awful ultrasounds and injections and all these different things, and yet she feels like she's not enough. And so now I want you to understand, like, love yourself. You did so much. You did everything you could have done. Please just accept that you have done all you could have done, and love yourself, and to love yourself back. Do the things that you enjoy. Find that thing that makes your heart sing, and just do it. Because when you have this kind of what we call higher vibration to doing the things that you really love, everybody else will respond to it. So thank you so much for sharing.
Can I
Yes.
just hop in there and say, like, one thing I was thinking of what you were saying about, we have to accept and embrace the fact that we did everything that we could, but we also have to remember it's what we could do mentally, emotionally, physically at that moment in time, and we can't refer to years before that or years after that. We can only accept that was that moment, that history and time, and we can't change it. So it doesn't matter how we feel going forwards, we can't change the past. But yeah, what you're saying, very much so.
Yes, yes, thank you. Yeah, exactly. It's like, and you know, it's like you are in this valley, in this grief. Like I said, you look at this abyss and you're like, why am I even working? What am I earning the money for? You know, it's like, why am I going through these motions, getting up in the morning? And it's really like there is a higher purpose for you, and you find that. if you find your joy again, if you find that joy in your heart, something that makes your heart sing. And that's different for everybody. We all have different talents. Like for me, what was really helpful is I love being out in nature. And I like it very quiet and just being out in nature. For me, that was very therapeutic. Or just listening to certain music and then also journaling. So everybody has their own journey. And I also want you to know that all these different steps, even if you're, let's say, older and you kind of have accepted where you are, there will still be moments like out of the blue where you're like, oh my gosh, this, I could just cry right now because something just triggered me, and that's completely normal. And then just thinking about these different steps and, you know, having also this joy in your heart, it helps you to shorten that period of like when you're in this dark valley, and you can move forward. And so what comes next after self-care, after self-love, is the self-care. You know, we really need to nurture our body, our soul, and our mind. And so what I want you to remember is like this affirmation: I'm compassionate towards myself and others. And that's also where a lot of forgiveness comes in. Forgiveness for ourselves and other people. And so again, it's I am compassionate towards myself and others. And I think, yeah, we need to, like, you know, forgive ourselves, but also forgive others. And I think because sometimes some people can unintentionally tell us things that are so insensitive and so hurtful, and maybe even our own partners. And so we just need to be you know, forgiving, because we can't change them. We have to, it has to start with ourselves. So here's the affirmation again: I'm compassionate toward myself and others. And so the self-love is not so much, you know, running a hot bath or whatever, but it is really, you know, being kind of like more in attunement with what feels good. If you love yourself, you know what's good for yourself. And it starts with simple things like, you know, drinking enough water, and maybe eating more whole food based diet instead of, you know, fast food or things like that. Just little things like that are super, super important, because sometimes when we are that deep in our grief and just really don't know where to go next, we might just start, you know, compensating by having some habits that might not be too healthy. And so as an exercise, you can just dedicate maybe the first 10 minutes in the morning when you get up or before you go to sleep to just write one page of affirmations. You can just start, I'm a woman who is confident. And you can write a whole page on, I'm a woman who is loved. I'm a woman who is successful at everything that she does. Or I'm a woman who knows how to work through this grief. Or I'm a woman who is looking forward to the rest of her life. Things like that. So just kind of have your pen take over. It's your subconscious writing, no judgment, nothing. And if it's just 3 sentences, that's fine. If it's half a page, it's fine. But here, just an exercise for you is to start writing, I'm a woman who, or I am, and put something positive there. And so the next step is now to really come into alignment. Come into alignment with who we are, and to be able to speak and live our truth. And that's where, you know, the affirmation really comes in of saying, I am a clear communicator. Because if you're more in alignment with who you are, and if you can speak your truth and your voice, you're able to communicate. So again, the affirmation is, I am a clear communicator. And here I want to mention, often when we come up with the triggers with, you know, comments from other people that, you know, it's just really difficult to do, because sometimes it hurts us so deeply that we can't even think of an answer, because we're just trying so hard not to just burst out into tears. And there will be times like that. But I think if you work through this process more and more, you're able to come from a place of more alignment, and you can tell people, you know what, this was really a hurtful comment from me because you have no idea what I'm going through. And a lot of people can't even handle that truth, and that's okay. Be compassionate. But some other people, and you will know you're really good friends if they will actually ask back and want to have more information. So again, your your affirmation would be, I'm a clear communicator. And as an exercise, what you could do is to write a letter to your family or friends or even your significant other that you don't have to share. You might want to share, but maybe not. And just really write down all your journey, own your story. Write down everything that made you feel angry and how maybe really envious you are of some of your friends or your sister, who got pregnant at the drop of a hat and things like that. It's okay to write just a really long letter to family and friends, to your significant other, and let out all your frustrations and your anger. I think it's just really important to give a healthy outlet to all these thoughts that we don't allow ourselves to really have, because they can be quite angry and nasty, and that you have to get it out. Because if you bury your emotions, 5, 10, 50 years later, they might come out in the terms of some other imbalances in your physical body. So you want to take the time and just process through that. And just remember, it is your story. Nobody can tell you, oh, you shouldn't feel this way, because you're the one feeling that. Really own your story, because that's what will give you the strength to move forward. And there's a quote actually from Oprah who said, your wounds are your wisdom. And think about that. It's like what you have experienced, nobody else can tell you if that was a traumatic event or not. Because I can tell you right now, the one visit that we had um, at the reproductive endocrinologist, I think for my husband, it wasn't really a big deal. For me, it completely changed my life. So something from an outsider looking in might not really see anything, particularly scary or traumatic about it, but that doesn't matter. You own it. That's your story. And just sit with it and admit, be able to express that in a healthy way. So again, I am a clear communicator. And so the next step is where we really get more into the empowerment, where you want to become your best advocate. So because once you kind of like have really understood yourself more in the bigger context is of this thing, and you can accept it, you can feel like more in alignment with who you are because you love yourself, you forgive yourself, you're more compassionate toward yourself, you take care of yourself, you can move into that space of empowerment. And I just saw actually stuff, I saw a comment coming in. It's a challenge when your spouses experiences it differently. And yeah, that's what I mean. So you really have to, own your story. And I tell you, once you are able to own your story, you get into the space of empowerment. And you can share, it's like, what, yeah, maybe you experience this differently, but for me, this is how it feels. And just really be confident that you're doing things that are in your best interest. And so actually the affirmation that goes with that is, I am thinking clearly, because you don't want to have your thoughts kind of mixed up with many different things and being pulled in many different directions. You want to be in that inner alignment to feel that gut feeling and know, there is a path for you out there. And it's a path that feels really good, is in your heart. And you say, I am thinking clearly. And so you can, so I saw another comment come in right now, and I will just address that right now. So what if you're met with silence from these others around you? And you know what? They don't know how to process what you just told them. It's not that they don't want to help you or understand what you're going through. Their capacity for understanding is just not there. They don't have that emotional depth or empathy to truly, even if they try, to truly understand what you have been going through. So maybe one affirmation is like, I am compassionate toward my, family who doesn't understand what I'm going through. And so maybe one of the affirmational thoughts you could have, I'm a woman who is understood by her family. And so Yes, I know this will be recorded and it will be available on the website in the future, so you can watch it as many times as you need to. I know I'm throwing a lot of stuff at you, so yes, it's totally okay to go through it, step by step. So just take in whatever you can take in right now. If it becomes too overwhelming, just come back to it another time. Again, this is a multi-layered process. It takes a lot of time. Just be gentle with yourself. And it's not easy, but you'll get there. Yes, people just don't know how to respond. And I think it's, what Steph is doing right now with World Childless Week, it's going to have people a lot more aware of what is going on. And so I think in the future, there'll be a lot more awareness and people will slowly understand better on how to respond to, maybe don't have to respond. All they need to do is give us a hug and just be there and not just give us, suggestions that make us feel worse, because they don't understand what we're talking about. And so we just need to take the kind of like, yes, people have always these solutions. And, it's really helpful to say to people, you know what, I've been through so much. I really appreciate your suggestions, but I have heard them all before. And for me, it would be much more helpful if you would just support me where I'm at, because you cannot understand what I'm going through right now. And it just takes a lot of, alignment to be able to say that. And maybe it's not the right time. Maybe you just avoid these people for a while, write them a letter that you might not share, and then at a later time, you can go back and mention these things to them. And there is actually there was a webinar just the other day all about triggers. So I recommend you watch that, because there's a lot of good answers there, and that will help you to just kind of conquer that. Like, I don't want to, I don't have any like ready-made answers. I just know that if you are starting to feel more in alignment, then you can answer it in that way. Yeah, so what I meant to say is, if somebody has the moment like, just relax, or why don't you adopt, or, just do it, what's so difficult about it? Honestly, I just want to do an eye roll and walk away. But really, these people have no idea what they're talking about. So I would just tell them, I don't know if you realize how hurtful this comment is, because I have tried for so long. You have no idea how much my my heart hurts because of everything that I've been going through. And I know your comment was well meant, but really, to me, it was really hurtful. And maybe we could talk about it some other time, or you can open up to them, whatever that is. And yeah, so I just saw a comment that on Friday, that's where you can find that recording. So again, if you want to go to that space of empowerment, be your best advocate. And here's the affirmation: I am thinking clearly. And so think about, as in terms of an exercise, what are 5 things that bother you, but you tolerate anyway? And what can you do about these things? And can you come up with a solution that feels good to you? And so again, for these comments, just say it's hurtful to me, and send a lot of compassion towards that person. But they also think about things that you kind of compromise, that you maybe don't speak up about it because you're in the state where you really suffered too much, you went through so much, you took such a beating, and you're just like, I'm done with different things. But remember to look at, what feels really out of sync with me, really out of alignment, and look at that and see if you can find a better solution to whatever that is. If it's like social events, or, just other things that are not in alignment with you. And then the final step is really to go into this expansion. Once you feel more like, you can really expand into like this new path, into your like soul alignment. So it's really like your future, your fearless future. So here is your affirmation: I am wise. think about, you have a lot of wisdom right now because of what you went through. It's not something that anybody wanted to experience, but it is really a wisdom that maybe you can share with other people, or it will give you a certain um, depth that you have in interpersonal relationships that not a whole lot of other people have. So think about this is the affirmation, I am wise. And so an exercise is really to kind of face your fears. So, you can think about or write about 5 things that you always wanted to try, but you have never had the courage to try. So decide on one thing you might want to do. So I'm not really talking about the skydiving thing, but maybe it's like talking to maybe somebody that you miss that you haven't really talked to in a long time because maybe they have children, or or maybe not staying in contact with your small nieces and nephews because it really hurts so much. Think about, would you be able to rekindle that relationship once you feel stronger inside and more in alignment? So just think about that, some fears. So I am wise, and just think about your future, a fearless future. And that brings me actually to the very last exercise, which is to look at your future self. Think of yourself like, I don't know, 40, 50, 20 years from now. You're like a really old lady and you look back at your life. And so you look back and you say, wow, look at what she accomplished. What did she accomplish? And look back also and say, I admire this person so much for this and that. I admire how she overcame all these obstacles. And again, imagine yourself 40 years from now and you look back, it's like, what are really her best qualities? What am I really proud of? And what inspires me about her? So that's just a little exercise to think about your future self. And so that kind of completes what I wanted to talk about. And I wanted to really give you a message of hope and further purpose. And I know that there is so much love and light inside of you that the world needs so much, whatever your field or your kind of zone of genius is. And again, I would like to thank Steph so much for having me here today. And I hope that I gave you just some thoughts, some ideas on what helps you to move forward, to find the next steps. And also remember to watch the other webinars. This one that was on Saturday about art therapy is just wonderful to work through your grief. And then I think the day before on Friday, there was a meditation that's also super helpful to finding that alignment and that self-love and self-care. And so yeah, so that's, I think, pretty much everything I wanted to cover. So yeah,
No, it's brilliant. Thank you. And yeah, like you say, we've got different webinars throughout the week. I've had a bit of a problem with the computer over the weekend, so I'm not going to be able to upload them until tomorrow. But you say we've got 2 meditations, one on getting rid of the negative thoughts and feelings inside and embracing the positives, which, you've covered a lot of the different topics that we've gone through for the full week. And there's another one, the meditation today is on helping us rediscover how we can move forward. And I think the big thing, like you were saying, we don't have to worry about it being a plan B, or if that don't work, a plan C or a D and carrying up. We can just think, okay, what can I do? And it's the little things. It doesn't have to be big things. And like you say, reflecting back on your life as somebody who's older, you don't have to reflect on, what did I do? Oh gosh, I didn't do anything big. I didn't change the world. No, but you might have been always open with people and loving and smiling and supportive. And it's the little gestures.
exactly.
That can give you a feeling of worth as well. The fact that
Yes.
you're willing to support people.
Yes, exactly. That's what I mean. It's like when it can become so overwhelming, and it's just really focusing on the here and now and just the little things, and to become more in sync again with your body, because like what happened to me is like I totally lost the trust in my body, in the world around me, and it just kind of erode your self-confidence so much that I really had to learn again how to listen to my own body and to, your gut feeling, your heart. You know exactly what I mean if I say, um, that find that thing that makes your heart sing. And I saw one question somebody wanted me to go over again. the future self exercise. And so I'll just read it to you again. So imagine yourself 40 years from now, and you look back at your life. So what did she accomplish? And what do you admire her for? And what obstacles did she overcome? What is her best quality? And does she inspire you? And then actually what you can do is to all close it up. At the very beginning, I talked about the understanding, and I gave the 8 facets of life, you know, like your relationships, career, and you can look back at that after you do this exercise and kind of see where you're at. And then maybe something will pop in your mind. It's like, oh, I could do more of this or that. So
Can you just sorry? Can you just summarize those 8 again? Because people have said they like to relist them. So if you can just summarize
the 8. Okay, the 8 ones. Let me read it so I make sure I get them all. All right. It's your physical health is number 1. Physical health, your mental health, your mental well-being, your spiritual health, your career. So relationships, your social life, family life, and financial situation. So I can repeat it one more time. So it's your physical health, your mental well-being, your spiritual health, your career, and then your relationships, like your family and personal relationships, your social life, your family life, and your financial situation.
Brilliant, thank you. We have had a few more questions come up in the box, which I'll go through into a minute. While I think about it, is obviously this is very much I am, and it's all very much empowering in saying I am. And when we look back, sometimes people sort of go, well, what am I? What's good about me, or what have I achieved? And just as a point of reference that might help you is 2 years ago in 2018, we actually did people did photos of themselves and sent them in, and then had I am, and listed different things that they were that were positive and worthy. And they were amazing. They really are wonderful pictures. They're all still there in past events. So if you look to the past events of World Childless Week and look for the I am me, as we said, I am me gallery 2018, you can go in there and it might give you some more ideas of what you are if you've got that barrier there of not being able to see what you are. And you're so much more than a childless woman. That was what this was about. So it's just there. It might help some people to do that. But right,
I love the hashtag I am me.
Yeah, it went amazing. It was brilliant. And I've actually said, I mentioned it last night in the webinar with the champions, I think we should bring it back again for next year, because it was so powerful for people to actually create their own photo with these words on it. So we said, there's a lot more of us. We're getting louder each year. So to give people who want to do it again, and others who couldn't do it last time because they felt like they weren't comfortable, but they can do it, because we're moving forward. Yeah.
And there's always a right time for everything, and just be, loving, compassionate toward yourself. Don't beat yourself up if you don't feel like you can't handle something, or something doesn't feel, it's okay. There's going to be a right time for everything. So.
All right, going to the questions. It's got, what do we do with the anger? I was not just ashamed, but angry. Angry my body for letting me down. For once, no matter how hard I tried, my body would not do what I wanted to. I read that anger can be a fuel. What would you suggest based on your approach?
Yes, I totally get that. And the anger thing is very, very big for me. And it's something that still comes up. So for me, my approach would be to journal a lot about it, but also to do physical exercise, to do a lot of movement, like really moving your body can help you release that anger. And so that's what I recommend to my clients. It's really, there's certain journaling exercises and just kind of sit with it, but a lot of it is really to exercise, to move around, to go into nature, to maybe take up a boxing class, things like that. I think it's super important to get that out. And then again, there was this webinar about Helen yesterday, where she processes the grief, and we can also process anger through art therapy, I believe. I think maybe her focus is more on grief, but there are different therapies that specifically help with that if that's not enough. Another thing you might want to do is to, as far as like nutritionists, or laughter yoga. Yeah, I like that one. You know, everybody's different. Like for me, for example, yoga is, it doesn't, you know, vibe with me that much. I need to like run or, you know, smash some balls in tennis. So that's kind of like what helps me to process through it. But it's really from an emotional perspective. It is the journaling and just working through it, either with a therapist or a coach. That can be super helpful to get to that next step. And it is, if you look at, you know, there's a scale of emotions, and, you know, if you're in anger, you kind of moved on from the grief, and it's just a lot of like bursts and action. So you want to, you know, balance it also with the quiet time that comes after you've had some exercise. So there's like this balance. I hope that was helpful.
Yeah. I've heard some people say the best time to clean the house and do the jobs you hate is when you're angry, because you'll do a really good job, and you'll also get rid of that anger because your frustration comes out in the actions of doing something, as you say.
Exactly. Yeah, for me it's exercise, you know. So
it's finding the right thing that works, whether that's journaling, and we did the creative writing workshop on the Monday, or through the art with Helen. And you can, because I've done the course with her, and there's times I've been angry with something and I've just scribbled and scribbled and scribbled and scribbled and scribbled all my anger out. And then she does positive affirmations that you write over the top of the anger, and then you paint on top of it as well. So you actually lose it, and there's different layers to processing. So we can all find something that we like, whether it's writing, whether it's painting, whether it's exercising.
Right.
You know, there's something, and somebody mentioned laughter yoga, and I've actually written that down because I thought that would be wonderful to do next year childlessly. So thank you for the suggestion. A couple more questions I believe in here. Also says, I can mix up focusing on the here and now with denial, like focusing on work so much. Can you talk about that?
Yes,
briefly mentioned work.
To that. And it is, you know what, now that you are aware that that's what you're doing is actually the most important step, because that it's that awareness that you're actually tucking it away, because there was a time you didn't even notice that. And so now just be gentle with yourself. Again, you know, maybe the journaling, some of the transformation, maybe watch the webinar again or see what really spoke to you, and just start with that, just simple steps. And you can maybe, if it's, you know, a lot of work, maybe try to take a day off and see what happens, you know. Listen to your heart, you know, what brings you joy. And I know that, you know, we think it's the work, but there are other things besides work that are, you know, that make our heart sing. And it's sometimes a challenge to find this. And again, it starts with journaling, spending some time in nature, and maybe listening to some songs, some music you haven't listened to in a long time. Because what happens is you get out of your thinking brain, you get more into your subconscious, and trust that something will pop in your mind and you'll know what to do next.
One last question I can see here is, how do you get to the point of self-love in a world where one's value is often associated with having a child?
Yes. That is, you know, that is really the crux of it, you know. And it's really to look at, that's where, you know, the quote that I say is like, we're divine beings in a human form, where we have to understand, like looking at our lives, that is not all we're meant to be. It's really fate or destiny. It's like nobody can answer that question, why that didn't happen, that we have children. And I know in some cultures it's particularly difficult to understand, but maybe, you know, if you do any of the exercise, you realize, you know what, there's so much more that I can do in my life. And in terms of using that pain and transforming it into that is something that's in alignment with your soul. Maybe it is something to be more open about something else, or you know, affect people. You know, there will be things that will pop into your mind, but it's just a really tough one. And the most important thing is just start small. Start with the little feelings that you have in your gut, in your heart. You know, what can I do to be better with myself? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think something that's been, again, mentioned in previous webinars, sometimes you have to look back to where you were before you suddenly, like, lost yourself.
Yes.
What were your dreams maybe as a child, as a teenager, in your 20s? What did you think you wanted to do that perhaps you never got around to, that you might be able to take up again now? And rediscover those things you loved, and by rediscovering other things outside of you, they can be embraced into you and be part of, you know. Yeah.
And that is, I think you find that a lot, that, you know, like for me, I was able to go back to acupuncture school and really do something that I didn't have the courage to do before, because I didn't have children. You know, when I grew up, my grandfather is a doctor, my uncles were medical doctors, and I actually regretted I didn't study medicine. And that desire just became really strong when I was in my 40s, and that's when I went back to school. And I know that, you know, many of, you know, people around me, women that have had children, wish they could have done that, you know. So it's, yeah, they have something we will never have. But, you know, mothers also might look at us and wish, not in the negative way, but maybe they would have liked to do something more. And so we all have our different journeys, and it's just important to be compassionate towards each other, because sometimes the grass is always greener on the other side. Right? So.
Yeah. Lots of lovely comments though, and people saying they really appreciate what you've covered today.
Well, thank you.
And that it's going to help them, and I think that's lovely and important. I was thinking if you could do perhaps a fact sheet as well that we could put on the website of the 8.
Yes, I will do that.
That would be
I was
wonderful.
thinking about, yes, I will do like a little worksheet, and I will send that to you as a PDF, and then you can post it.
Because I think if people can print it off and just stick it on the fridge.
Exactly.
Like that, they can just literally walk past, look at one, try and use that one for the day, perhaps. If, you know, because sometimes we think, I've got to do all the work, and if it becomes too much of a worry that you have to do something, and then if you haven't done it, you've failed yourself and you're putting in negatives. So sometimes you've got to just focus on one thing for one day.
Well said. Well said. Yeah. Yes, I will do that. I promise I will do that. Yes.
That'd be brilliant. I think that would really help. So yeah, it's been really lovely to have you here and talk about everything. It's definitely been appreciated by everybody attending, and thank you so much for being part of World Childless Week. You know, it's been an amazing week, and we all overlap each other with the different webinars. But that's what makes it wonderful, because we can dip in and out of what pulls us in on each day. Yeah,
exactly.
So
thank you so much.
I think it just says, is there another question? No, we've done those questions. That's okay. Just double checking. So I think I'll say thank you again. Loved all of you who came and attended. Loved you, Natascha, for doing this. And I'll stop the recording and we can carry on with the rest of our day. Thanks. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.